Hello and welcome to the Paid Search Podcast. My name, as always, is Chris Schaefer, and I'm here to talk to you about Google Ads. I have to say, not every episode is exciting to me. I write my own shows, of course. I choose my own material, but let me say, today's metric of the week, today's question, and today's topic of the week is really good. I'm actually really looking forward to going through all of these with you, so be sure and stick around. I have some really good stuff, and if you're wondering about what the panic button is, man, I'm excited to tell you that. That's at the very end of the show, the topic of the week, so stick around for that. But we're also going to talk about first page bid estimate, and we have a question from Germany about pigeonhole. De-pigeonholing yourself. So great question. Looking forward to answering that. So let's get into it. First with optio.com/PSP. I love to tell you guys about this because it is such a cool tool and they're such a great company to work with because they're innovating all the time. If you haven't heard of Optio, you really need to try out this tool. If you're in Google Ads enough to listen to one guy talk about the minute details of Google Ads, this tool is for you because it's built to help you do more in Google Ads. They're releasing new things all the time. I told you recently about an Ngram tool, which will help you to parse out all kinds of amazing information in your search terms. There's also some amazing location exclusions, which help you to find specific locations that are underperforming in your account and measure what the impact would be if you were to exclude them from your account. I've been told that you guys can get access to these special beta features if you just mention that you heard about it on the show here, heard about Optio on the show from the Paid Search Podcast here. You can get access to these specialty betas that they're releasing before they're available to the public. And not only that, you can try the whole tool for free for 2 months. So that's optio.com/PSP. If you are driving or you can't get to the URL, you can't open it, it'll be in the description of this video wherever you're watching or listening. It'll be there. So optio.com/PSP. All right, here we go. Metric of the week. So I've gone through a lot of things, and something came up. You guys know I do a lot of consulting, a lot of talking with people all over the world about their Google Ads accounts and give advice and look at their accounts with them. And one thing keeps coming up that I want to address, and I've never talked about it before, and it is this estimated first page bid. Technically, the term in the column, it's a keyword column called first page bid estimate. So, first page bid estimate is a suggestion about a high and low bid that that Google will give. It's a suggestion about what you would expect to pay. There's a couple different estimate tools in Google. There's the giant red text, but there's actually a column that you can add that gives you an estimated number. If you pay this, you should get on the first page. Now, this is not for anyone who's doing any automated bids. If you're using Max Clicks, you're using Max Conversions, Target CPA, Target ROAS, any of those things, you don't need this because you don't choose your bids. But if you're using manual bids, you might be tempted to use this estimator tool to give you some kind of idea of what you should pay. I want to tell you that this estimator is, to me, and the way I make decisions in Google Ads, is completely worthless. I see absolutely no value in this tool. And I want to tell you, if you're questioning how much you should be spending in Google Ads, I'm going to give you a shortcut. First, if you're just getting started in Google Ads and you want to try manual bidding, the first thing you should do is just bid something. Bid probably more aggressive than you think. If you think you might get $2 CPCs, start with 4. If you think you might be able to get clicks for $25 a click, start with 50. Basically, the advantage of manual CPC is that you can start immediately. That same day, within an hour, within moments, you can get clicks. It's a massive advantage because you can choose the pacing of your keywords. So I always suggest start heavy, start big, go big at the beginning, and then pull back. And if you're saying, well, Chris, how do I know if I need to pull back? Well, look into another column called search impression share lost due to rank. Now, it's abbreviated, but the column is specifically called search lost IS parentheses rank, RANK. Search lost IS open parentheses RANK rank, and then close parentheses. This number will tell you if you need to pull back on your bids. If that number, right, if you bid $50 for your keyword, and then you come back the next day and you look at your search lost IS rank number, and it tells you it was, and it says 5% in that column, you need to pull back on your keywords. That number, for those that are just getting started in Google Ads, should be closer to 60, maybe 50 to 70%, something like that. That's a healthier percent. You do not want this number to be very, very low. Basically means you're overbidding for your traffic. Okay, so you could consider it to be your RPM gauge, right? You're revving your car up, you're hitting the gas. How hard are you hitting the gas? How hard is your engine working? Well, the RPM gauge will go up and down, except in this scenario, the lower the number, the higher you're bidding, the more you're stressing the engine, the more you're pushing those keywords. So higher numbers mean you're pulling back on bids. So it's inverse from what you might think, the way that a RPM system would work. But the idea still applies. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you don't look at Google's estimated first page bid and the estimator tool and think that's the best information. You know you're going to be somewhere in between the high and the low estimates. No, bad way to do it. You need a feedback system, and the feedback system you should use should be search lost IS rank. Okay, that is metric of the week. Slowly trying to define the entirety of Google Ads one piece at a time. I have a long way to go. All right, so we have a question from Matthias from Germany. I know Matthias has sent in questions before, so I'm glad to hear from you again. If you would like to send in a question to the podcast, you can do so at paidsearchpodcast.com. Please send your emails in that way. I do get some people that contact me other ways, but I really like to have everything flow through that system. That way I always check it when it comes time to check my questions. And be patient if you haven't heard an answer. I try and mark everything and eventually get to it. So, coming all the way from Germany, Matthias, it's a long email. I'm not going to read all of it, but I think there's some key points we need to get here. Matthias says, I had a very successful B2B lead gen target CPA campaign for a customer. This campaign crashed and burned in March last year. There were several things that were leading up to this, but in essence, I believe it was because the campaign couldn't deliver on the set target CPA anymore, and Google slowly but steadily stopped impressions on the campaign. You're absolutely right, Matthias, and you'd be able to see that, by the way, in your search impression share loss due to rank that I just described. Essentially, that number would be 90%. It would say greater than 90%. And that means that the engine essentially stalled out. Moving on with the question. We noticed too late, and in combination with mistakes in the recovery process, the strong campaign history was gone, and we essentially had to start over. Suddenly, even though campaigns stayed the same, the long-proven keywords were no longer successful. They were delivering few and way too expensive conversions. And then he goes on to describe, kind of what they did. But I want to pause here because we've already learned two very important things. Great question. Thank you so much. This was, you actually skipped the line because I read this question and I was like, I want to answer this right now. This is such a good, there's so many good lessons in this question. So first of all, we learned that if you have a campaign that is struggling, if you start to see a degrading number of conversions, if the conversions in Google Ads start slowing down or break, which I had a client, that happened to a client with me just this week, their conversion tracking broke. And if that happens, the target CPA system, the automated bidding system will fail and the campaign will eventually stop running. A automated bidding strategy without conversions, particularly the target CPA or target ROAS, that is akin to pulling the oil out of an engine. If you stop the conversions on a target CPA campaign, you've just sucked you drain the oil out and didn't put new oil in. The whole engine will seize up and stop. So that's important to note. Do not mess around keeping static target CPA numbers when you're experiencing fluctuations in the performance. Now, the next thing is, as he described, even though the campaign stayed the same, they were no longer successful with the same keywords and they were delivering few and way too expensive conversions. So this is another lesson. If you find yourself struggling with campaigns and performance and numbers and major issues like this, this is critically important that you move and adjust. Now, I'm not blaming you. This happens all the time, Matthias, so I'm not blaming you for that. But it's just a great reminder that a healthy campaign does not shrink in the number of keywords. At best, it stays static. The number of keywords stays the same, but a healthy campaign does not shrink. A healthy campaign ebbs and flows, small, and then a few are removed here and there, and things expand and then shrink a little bit, but there's always a movement. This is representative of the fact that nothing stays static in PPC. Nothing stays static in the world when it comes to searching. People search differently. Year to year, new competitors come in. People search differently because trends will pop up. People you will use different terms. And to answer the entire scope of this question, essentially, how do you de-pigeonhole yourself? The answer is this. You change the frame of thought of which phase you are in. Now, hopefully, longtime listeners know what I'm talking about. But if not, go back and listen to, it'll be around episode 386, called Phases of Success. Essentially, you need to recalculate the phase that you're in. If you're running along and seeing a campaign starting to trip up, suddenly CPC is increasing, number of clicks are decreasing, conversions are dropping, cost per conversion is increasing, conversion rate is decreasing. If you're seeing this system, and it seems to be consistently happening month to month to month, you need to de-pigeonhole yourself by realizing I am no longer in phase 4. I am now in possibly phase 2, right? I'm now trying to get to a point of reaching phase 3. Phase 2 is where you're getting conversions, but you're not meeting your KPI. You're not meeting your cost per acquisition, your target ROAS, whatever it is that you're trying to do. You're no longer achieving that. You're now in phase 2, and you need to work with the campaign as though you're in phase 2, not phase 4. Phase 4 is scaling, growing, while maintaining your target CPA, your target cost per conversion, whatever it is you're going after. Reframe what you're looking for. And in phase 2, what's the difference between phase 2 and phase 4? Well, in phase 2, you're adding keywords. You're expanding. You're adding, you're testing different levels of the funnel. you suddenly realize, I don't know what works. Maybe I need more high funnel. Maybe I need more of this industry specific kind of term, or maybe I'm targeting the wrong people entirely, right? There's more testing, major testing. Your entire campaign should be testing, trying to figure out what it is that's going to work for you. Maybe new bidding strategies, new keywords, something needs to change. So this is really important. So to de-pigeonhole, what does that look like? Well, there's actually going to be a continuation of answering this question in the final topic of the week at the very end of the show. But not to steal thunder from that, I want to talk about how to de-pigeonhole. So essentially, you need to change your frame of mind, as I discussed. Beyond that, how do you de-pigeonhole now that you've understood that you're now in phase 2? You're no longer working with the same kind of campaign progression that you had before. How do you change that? Well, you need to try broader keywords. If you're using exclusively very specific exact match, stop. Don't pause them, but add more. Expand. That's really probably the best term that I can use to explain how to de-pigeonhole yourself is expand. Reach beyond what you're reaching now. Find new traffic. Find something beyond what you were doing before. Long-standing keywords that are now not performing like they should are no longer long-standing successful keywords. You need to find the new long-standing keyword. So geographically, maybe you need to change strategies. Instead of targeting these 4 zip codes or these 4 counties or these 4 areas, maybe you need to consider a different shift in where you're going to show. Maybe your expansion looks like broader keywords. You're using longer tail broad match to find new content, new people. Maybe you need to consider the fact that you've shut off computer and tablet traffic entirely. Maybe your ad schedule's too restrictive. You've shut off 70% of the day and you're only advertising in the afternoon on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Expand. No longer take what you thought was working for granted anymore. Expand. Try something different. Grow. That's how you forcibly find areas that are successful. That's what phase 2 looks like. Changing, strategizing, trying new things. And if you want more on that, stick around to the end because I'm going to talk about the panic button in Google Ads, what it is, what it looks like, and get further into that. So I hope that is helpful to you. Thank you for the question. As I said, you can send in your question at paidsearchpodcast.com. And I want to remind you before we go into the final section of the podcast, optio.com/PSP is the URL that you need to remember. I will talk about it definitely for quite a long time because I don't really entertain other sponsors on this show because when I find a sponsor I like, when I find a software I like, and they like me and I like them, I'm going to keep preaching this software until they fire me because I don't think there's anything else out there like Optio. If you haven't tried it, go to their website, tell them, hey, Chris promised me that you guys would give me 2 months for free. Test and see that they will. And I just bet you're going to end up liking it more than just those 2 months. You'll realize, wow, this is actually a really indispensable tool. This really helps me keep my eye open for the keyword of the day, expansion, right? That's what Optio will help you identify. Expansion, changing, hopefully to de-pigeonhole yourself. Okay, so here we are. Let's talk about the panic button in Google Ads. And I was driving today, thinking about, well, what do I want to talk about today in Google Ads? And it just popped. And I realized, well, Chris, I talk to myself sometimes. Say, Chris, first of all, you look great, Chris. And then I said, thank you, Chris. And then I said, pay attention back here. What you need to talk about is stuff that you do. And then I thought immediately, well, I need to talk about the panic button in Google Ads. The OMG, everything's crashing. What do? I don't want to get fired. I don't want to lose my business. There's a panic button in Google Ads. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about how to use it, what it is, and how to push it. So first, let me say this. There's not really a panic button. Okay, so there's not actually a panic button. But I'm going to describe these strategies as effectively a panic button that you can hit in Google Ads to try and kind of do an explosive reset of what you've been doing before. And this rides along a lot with, de-pigeonholing yourself. When you need a reset, when you need something new, when you need to expand beyond what you've been doing because suddenly it's not working anymore, there's multiple ways that you can achieve that. So, first, I think the best way to describe it is, what I've done for other clients. I have a client that sells a home item, just a normal home service kind of item, very common. And this client saw crashing conversions. Suddenly, after a long time of getting good numbers, suddenly their cost per conversion just crashed on me. And I'm like, what is going on? I don't understand. I don't understand why this isn't working. I tried opening up the bids, lowering the bids, raising the bids. I tried, being more restrictive with the negative keywords, adjusting some stuff. So it didn't work, and I had to hit the panic button. So my first strategy for panic button was I changed I copied the campaign. Okay, and guys, what I'm talking about here is panic. Okay, please don't do this as though it's a strategy that's good for a healthy campaign. Okay, I know I talk to a lot of listeners on consulting. Please don't come to me and pay for consulting and then say, I did what you said and I copied and pasted my campaign and it didn't work and everything failed. I am talking about panic buttons like, oh my goodness, I can't fix it. Okay, last ditch effort. I copied my campaign, copy paste, and then I changed everything to broad match. I changed everything to broad match. And I changed, my bidding strategy was manual, and I changed it to max conversions. This was my first go-to panic button. Okay. So why did I do that? Why did I choose that? And when would you not want to choose this particular panic button? Well, this panic button was useful to me because I was getting good traffic. But what had slipped on me was conversions. I was happy with my bids. I was happy with my positions. I was happy with my search terms. I just wasn't getting conversions. There was something magical that just wasn't happening anymore. I didn't understand why. So I copied and pasted, and I gave that other campaign a smaller budget. So let's say, maybe there was a $60 budget on the original campaign. I took $15 from that and put it into my broad match max conversions campaign. So what did I experience? After I hit this panic button, what happened? Well, to my great frustration, everything started spending on just a couple keywords. It was ridiculous. Nothing spent on these more refined keywords, these more specific keywords. It's just really generic. Kind of suddenly Google's ooh, it's just feeding and just eating up these broader kind of non-specific terms. That was scary. But what I also started getting was inconsistent. They weren't great, but I started getting conversions on this campaign. And I actually was able to start to learn something from it. I was like, oh, Look at that. That search, that interesting search term came through as a conversion a couple times on this campaign. I wonder if I can take that and move it into my manual. Maybe I'm not going to block it on this campaign, but I am going to take that and start targeting it in my manual. Now I understand there's cannibalization issues. There's I'm duplicating keywords, right? But I'm in panic mode here. I'm in panic mode. Okay? When you're in panic mode, you don't think rationally. All the rational thought in my mind is kind of gone, So I'm duplicating keywords and I'm trying things, but what I experienced was I was getting conversions. And of course, with automated bidding, there's some massive spikes. I might have a really good day and then I have a spell of a few poor days and then things get better again. But it was so much better to at least have a supplement to my campaign. This, as I talked about before, this is essentially, de-pigeonholing. I'm like, okay, all bets are off. Auto bidding, broad match. Still a small budget. I'm still able to control something. I didn't completely blow everything up. I kept a percentage of my budget in my original campaign, but I started testing. All right. Another time, I had another client that was not getting conversions, and they never did get conversions. Right. So this is panic button number 2. This client had no conversions, and they were fine with no conversions. We'd never track conversions, and they're just happy with what they're getting. They see the value of it. We just don't track it. It's their choice, and that's fine. So for this, this panic button, I absolutely do not push the same panic button as the other, because this one I don't want to do max conversions. I want to do max clicks. So panic button number 2 looks like this. I use an experiment. So that's a very formal thing in Google Ads. You set up an experiment, you launch it, you schedule it, and then launch it. It's an experiment. Okay, so that's not copy and paste. So this is a different panic button. This is different. It's much more controlled. And I set up an experiment where I changed all of my traffic to broad match again, right? Expanding. It's the word of the day today. Expanding my campaign, broad match keywords. And I use max clicks. So what was the purpose? What does this panic button do compared to the other one? Well, panic button number 2 is basically testing if I'm really getting the lowest cost per click that I possibly can. Have I been running this campaign so tightly that I've put blinders on and I don't realize I could be getting much, much cheaper traffic if I just open up my keywords, use max clicks, monitor for quality of traffic. Still, I'm not giving up on that, but what can I get cost per click? Maybe I'm running along and don't realize there's no one beside me anymore. I'm in my own lane here and I'm running alone. This panic button number 2 system is great because it's just kind of a gut check. Are you really managing at the capacity that is most efficient? Now, outside of conversions, this is important. The biggest thing outside of conversions, if you're not tracking conversions, the most important aspect is cost per click and quality of traffic. How much are you paying per click, and what quality is that traffic that you're paying for? That's really the only qualifiers of a non-conversion tracked campaign. Not how high you are on the ranking, not how many impressions, not what your click-through rate is, but how much are you paying for it, and what is it? And is it qualified? Is it worth what you're paying for? So that was a great little reset button that I used. Moving on to panic button number 3. In this scenario, I started to see a degrading in an automated bidding scenario. So this is the inverse of what I talked about for panic button number 1. Panic button number 1 is going from automated to manual. Why would you use this? Why would you do this? Well, the panic is this. I am struggling with quality of leads. I need very specific types of clicks. For example, the campaign is getting a lot of type A clicks and traffic. The client will then email me and say, I don't want A anymore. I want B. Oh, well, I get B sometimes, but I get 97% A, but I don't hardly get any B. Well, in this scenario, I don't really have any way to slow it down. The automated bidding doesn't give me any real options. I can't just pause it. There's a lot of danger in just stopping something that's working. So what I do in this case is I actually do another experiment, and I go from automated to manual. So the advantage here is that I can emphasize specific keywords, strategies, types over others that will push conversion type B over conversion type A. The client doesn't want conversion type A anymore. They want B, or more B at least. They still want some A, but they want B. So what do? Well, I use manual bids to emphasize and de-emphasize the areas that lead to A and B conversions. This is important because quality of leads comes from the traffic that you're generating. If you're getting the wrong kind of leads, that means you're getting the wrong kind of clicks, and you need to slow or increase specific areas of your campaign to encourage or discourage that traffic from coming in. So another great panic button that you can hit, right? That's a strategy shift in your, basically just your bidding. I'm still keeping the same keywords, the same match type of the keywords. They're still phrase and exact. I'm not using broad in that instance, still very different. And then here's the big one. This one's the most complex and requires the most work, but panic button number 4 is starting a new campaign. While this campaign's running, I'm going to go in and build a brand new campaign. I'm going to build a campaign from the ground up based on what I think needs to change. This is something that is particularly difficult. It's very difficult to analyze because if you have one campaign system that's running very differently than another, how do you analyze which one's doing better? There's a lot of moving parts and nothing really matches. You're comparing apples to oranges sometimes, and it can be very difficult. But this is another panic button where you just essentially reinvent what you've already invented. You think, I've done this for years. It's not working anymore. What if I tried it this way? And maybe you've listened to me long enough and you're ready to try something more akin to my 10 principles of Google Ads, where you build things based on themes and strategies and risk management and phases of success kind of thing. Basically the strategic relevance theory that I built here. That is a great reason to hit panic button number 4, where you essentially build it, and then either you hit the switch and you pause one and turn the other on, or you slowly move budget from one to the other. Or you could do it as an experiment as well. There's a lot of ways you could do it, but that is much more intensive because the first thing you have to do is decide, how is it different? Don't just... Let me say this slowly. I hope I've been talking for a while. This is going to be the most important thing that I say about this panic button number 4. So I hope you're still with me. The most important thing is do not just take your keywords and copy and paste them from one campaign to another and just put them into different ad groups, or move the structure of the campaigns around or something like that. That is not a way of creating a difference in your account. That's not a way of doing something differently. That's just taking your clutter and moving it from one side of the garage to the other. You didn't fix anything. You just recluttered everything. You need to start from the ground up. When I say the ground up, that means think about, okay, what ad groups do I need? Actually, that's not even the first step. First of all, who am I trying to reach? What are they searching for? What are the services that I offer? What are the ways that they're searching for those services? And how do I itemize and categorize those into ad groups and then create specific ad copy to message and send people to the proper page of my site? That's what the ground up strategy looks like. That's what panic button number 4 looks like. Sometimes can be the most difficult to do, the most time intensive one, but it can be the most rewarding to help you get more out of your Google Ads. So there you go. I just introduced 4 new buttons that maybe you can use to de-pigeonhole, shake things up, get out of a giant mess that you've slowly been digging yourself into. I hope that is useful to you. If you'd like for me to help you do that, if you'd like for me to step you through some of those things, look at what you've done, be happy to do that. I have consulting services. It's a 1-hour session over Zoom. You can book that. It's $400 per session. I promise you it is worth the investment. I could have many testimonies and tell you that that people have taken hours and hours of Google Ads training and read books, and they said in the 1 hour that they heard me speak about their campaign, they learned more than they'd ever learned before. I'm selling myself hard here, but I'm 100% serious. That's what it's like. It's a very intensive 1-hour session, so that's why I charge so much for it. You can learn more at chrisschaefer.com. Otherwise, hey, thanks for being here. I'll catch you guys next week.